Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar. My name is Cindy Strobridge. I'm our Director of Employee Relations and Special Events in the Center for Career and Professional Development. I also am an expert moderator at these webinars by this point. Feel free to go ahead and grab your cell phone, scan this QR code to check in for me, please. This is currently being recorded. A recording will be sent out later to you if you have checked in, so please go ahead and do that for me. Right now, everyone should be on mute. Please do stay on mute until the end of Allison's presentation, where we'll be happy to take questions. You can either pop those in the chat feature in Zoom, or you can come off mute and ask yourself. So with all that being said, Allison Nooks is our presenter today. She's our lovely Director of Career Management over in the Stetson Hatcher School of Business. We're so excited to hear from her today to talk about soft skills and why they can be so challenging. So Allison, take it away.
Thanks, guys. Good to have everybody. So glad you're here with us today. So I'm just going to give you some quick tips. Again, at some point, you're welcome to take off your mic and turn it on so that we can talk to each other. But just want to kind of give some highlights that I think will be helpful. I do want to say that I'm excited to have you guys here. I am a double bear myself. I'm so excited to be here, and I'm a mama bear. And I just love being at Mercer because it really is home for me. So today we're going to hit some highlights on soft skills. And so let's just get going. So the thing I want to start with first is what are technical skills or hard skills? And I think a lot of times we mix those up because we may not realize that they're not the same. And so sometimes when we do our resume, we might inadvertently put soft skills next to just hard skills, or we just put all the skills together. And what I'd encourage you to do, particularly for those of you that are looking at a skill section on your resume, is consider breaking those out a little bit, keeping the hard skills together and the soft skills together. So what is a hard skill? Well, it's a technical skill, and it's something that requires you to have some training or experience. So you're taking classes now that I suspect that you're learning some of those hard skills. Python, Java, data analysis, maybe. You're learning some marketing skills, some analytical skills of some sort. Maybe you're doing some data analytics. Maybe you've learned a little bit about graphic design. Those are considered hard skills, meaning some type of training and experience was really required in order for you to essentially learn those things, okay? So that is what a hard skill is. So let's learn a little bit about soft skill basics, okay? So this is what I tell my students. I have been teaching for a long time in communication, marketing, communication, PR, and media, digital media. And one of the things I tell them is that when you get a job, the hardest part, it sounds funny, but it's the people. So why would I say it's the people? Well, at the end of the day, you might have those hard skills, and you might find that you know all the technical pieces of the job, but surprisingly, the hard part is what I call playing well in the sandbox, okay? So I remember when I used to go to the beach when I was younger, and even when I take my kiddos to the beach, there's some fundamental rules about being at the beach with sand. You cannot throw the sand in anyone's eyes. If you play with the sand, be mindful of the wind so it doesn't hurt anyone. If you're going to play, make sure that you stay in your spaces. All the general rules of the sandbox, if you will. And so it's kind of the same in a workplace. And that's why I call it the sandbox reminder. And the question really is for you, do you play well with others? Or if you have someone that's not so good at this, do they play well with you? And so I always give the imagery of a sandbox because you have all of these people within an organization or within your classes or within your internship, and you're trying to navigate those relationships. And what I would say to you is the better that you can learn how to play well in the sandbox, the better off you will likely be. So let's talk about a little bit what that looks like. So working well with others, and here are just some examples of soft skills: and communication, teamwork, problem solving, time management, critical thinking, decision making, organizational skills, stress management. Now, I will say that you can learn some pieces of all of these. You can definitely learn more about communication. You can definitely learn more about teamwork or problem solving. But the reality is that for some of us, we have natural inclinations to do better in some of these areas than others. One of the things I try to do is I try to put communication near the very top whenever I make a list like this, because what I want you to realize as you think about your soft skills is that one of the key fundamental pieces in that process is your ability to communicate, and not just communicate for communicating's sake, but to communicate well. And well really means that you have to be able to be mindful of what you need, what skill in communication you'll need for that particular situation. So sometimes it's an email, that might be the thing that you're sending, but sometimes you need to have a face-to-face meeting. Sometimes it's a Zoom meeting. And as we probably have all experienced over the last couple of years, the interactions on a face-to-face meeting is certainly going to be different than that of a Zoom meeting or on a phone call or via email. So you have to be kind of versatile in those areas. Teamwork is another area. So using the features at the bottom, how many of you like working on group projects for classes? Anybody love it? I would love to see those individuals. Anybody just chomping at the bit to work on group projects? Anybody? Okay. So a few people are, and then a few people not so much. Well, the question really is for you, what is it about group projects that aren't so fun? And what are about group projects that are pretty great? Well, in a work environment, believe it or not, you have a similar space as you would in some classrooms at times, where you're trying to navigate those personalities. You're trying to kind of figure out what it looks like when you're working in those group projects. And then you're trying to get those personalities to rise to their best occasion, okay? Time management is the same principle. Some of us are probably a little bit of procrastinators, a little bit, maybe a lot of it, that we might be really not great with our time management. Some of us might have difficulty making decisions and so on. So I think you're getting the space and kind of understanding where I'm going with this, okay? So what are some of the things I'd like for you to think about as you try to build your soft skills, okay? So I'd like for everybody that's on here with me to pause for a second. If you have a sheet of paper, if you have your cell phone, just take out go to your notepad inside of your phone and just pause for a second and write your top 5 technical skills, okay? So the first thing you're gonna do is write your top 5 technical skills. And the second thing you're going to write is your top 5 soft skills, okay? So let's all do that together, and I'm gonna do it. I didn't do it ahead of time, although I do know mine off the top of my head. I'm gonna write those down, and so we're gonna start there. Again, you're writing down your top 5 technical, your top 5 soft, and I'm gonna ask 1 or 2 of you, if you're willing, to share your top 5, or 1 or 2 of your top 5. So your top 5 technical and top 5 soft. So I'm gonna write a few of mine as well. All right, so I have mine written down. We're gonna start just there. Will somebody share theirs if they don't mind? Anybody that would be willing to kind of come off mic and share your top? Do 2 out of each group. Somebody sharing their top 5 technical skills.
I'm going to share.
Great.
Allison,
Tell
yeah,
us your
so
name,
for
by the
mine-
way, too.
Yeah. Hi, I'm Derek. Nice to meet all you guys. I think I know. I think I saw you yesterday, Allison, but I don't think we got a chance to talk.
Right.
But for the technical skills, I would say mine will be Excel and NetSuite, which is basically my top 2. NetSuite, obviously, Excel, obviously, I work in finance and accounting, so I use it every day. And then NetSuite is the accounting functionality that I use, or the accounting software or application we use.
Awesome. That's perfect. And then do you mind sharing your top soft skills?
So my soft skills would be I'm good at interpersonal relationships, kind of building, and I'm also good at delegating.
Perfect. Beautiful, beautiful.
Thank you.
And that's actually hard sometimes to delegate. So those are two great ones.
100%.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you so much, Derek. And Derek, what, if you don't mind telling everyone, what discipline are you studying? What are you doing as far as your degrees and whatnot?
For me, I'm studying for my MBA. I can go and turn on my video just so y'all see
Yeah,
me.
I saw your.
But I'm studying just for a general MBA, and basically I work in consulting, and for a consulting firm, but I do portfolio management for them. So
Awesome, that's great. Good to see you again, 2 days in a row.
likewise.
Yeah, good to see you. All right, someone else that would be willing to share their top 2 of technical and their top 2 soft. All right, Yash, you're up.
Yeah, okay, I can go, but I might need a little bit of insight. Are these hard skills, as you would say? So mine would be, say, data representation,
Okay.
and digital marketing, strategic planning and execution.
Yeah.
And that's a software that is called SolidWorks that's used for engineering. So I love that. So these are my top, you can say top 4. And my soft skill would be communication and like time management. Mhm.
Wonderful. That's wonderful. Time management you're one of few people I know that's kind of good at that. That's good. That's very good. All right. So I'll share my top 2, and if anybody else wants to go, feel free to let us know. But two of my top skills is graphic design, and I do marketing and PR analysis and digital media. And then my 2, communication is my top, and team building. So again, when you look at your top, when you do a little self-reflection, it's kind of easy usually, I find, to pick what my top are. My top 5 technical skills are easy to pick, and my top 5 soft skills are usually easy to pick. But then when you start going down to the next section you see on the screen, it's a little bit more challenging, I find, to start really doing an analysis of, okay, what are the things that I need to correct? Excuse me, I'm missing an A in technical. So you write your top 3 new technical skills you need, and then the top soft skills that you need. And these could be skills that you need to work on or do not currently possess, So I guess the question for you is, when you do your technical skills, when you look at what you need to learn and know, do you know what that is? My mom used to tell me all the time, it's important to know what you don't know, right? You need to make a really clear assessment about the things that you're really great at. It might be technical in nature. You're great at, SaaS, or you're great at graphic design, or you great at project management. You're great at all of those things, but it's also equally important to know what you don't know. And those are equally as important as what you do know. And so just like you wrote your top 5, if you could do me a favor, is go ahead and write your top 3 things that, if you had to look back, and these are often things that someone has probably said to you, hey, Allison, you could use some training in this area. Or, hey, George, you can use some training in this area. It can give you kind of an inclination. It could even be things that your mom and dad possibly, or friends or colleagues or partners have said, do you know you do this? Or do you know you do that? It helps you kind of remind you of what you need to know, okay? So let's do that again. You're gonna write your top 3 technical skills that you need to acquire, and then you're gonna write top 3 technical skills that either you need to get better at, or that you know that you currently don't have those soft skills and you need to get those somewhere and learn more about them. So let's pause for a second and do that again. And I'm going to stop share for just a quick second. And you're going to write those down, and this is not figurative, this is literal. All right, you should be now moving on to the to the soft skills, okay? I'm gonna reshare my screen. All right. So someone else that would be willing to share again? Top 3 technical skills. And ideally, if you can share all top 3, that would be great. Just need one person that would be willing. No pressure, by the way.
I can go.
Okay.
So the top 3 technical skills that I need right now and that I need to work on are some of the functional assays that we do in lab. So I'm from the PhD department, by the way. So so some of the functional assays, binding assays, and then neuronal cell culture. These are the top 3. And
Wonderful.
then the top 3 soft skills that I need to work on are communication and delegating responsibilities, as well as stress management.
Yes. So the key for the soft skills as well is that, in my opinion, from my experience, is that a lot of the soft skills that we have really enhance our learning and our ability to do great in other aspects of our life. But the areas that we also need to grow are areas that without them, we may not flourish as the way we should. So you noted in delegation, that is actually one of my soft skills that I have to continue to work on, because I tend to say yes. I tend to say, oh, I know they could use that support. So I tend to say yes, but I also need to at times say, you know what? I have a capacity issue. I can't do all of this. So I either need to delegate, or I might have to say not no forever, but just no for now. So that is a great one. I love that. I love that. Anybody else that would like to share? Because these are really good. I love hearing these come out.
I could go.
Go ahead.
Okay. Sorry, did someone else wanted to go?
It's okay. You can go ahead.
All right,
We
cool.
can all go. Great. I love the interaction. Okay.
Hi, I'm Farzana, and I'm also from the PhD department here at Mercer.
Yeah.
So first of all, for the technical skills, I feel like I don't really need to, I guess, for the field I am in, but I would love to learn more about like programming. I know a little bit of Python, would love to learn more. Project planning sometimes, because it's like independent work. I struggle with that. Data analysis, we have to do that all the time, but I would love to know like new methods of doing it. And then for soft skills, I'm not great at conflict management, and I've heard that before. So just gonna try to work on that. Also about stress management, because there's too much stress and I think I freak out a lot. And then teamwork, it's like I am almost there. I like to do it, but I don't love it. So maybe I could. Yeah, that's about it.
I love those. Love all of those, because I think even when we're strong in some areas, we recognize that there are areas that we can improve on. So conflict management, I suspect if I took a survey, many of us struggle with that. Why do we struggle with conflict management? Well, I have looked at some research and read a few articles on this, but part of it is that, you know, when you think about how we're socialized for conflict, what are one of the things we're taught kind of when we're pretty young about conflict? Can anybody give me an example of some of the things that we're probably taught when we're kind of in our younger years, even toddler, elementary school years? What are we taught about conflict?
We should avoid.
Go ahead.
We should avoid it.
Yeah, we should avoid it. Try to get along with your friend. Just say sorry, kind of go along to get along to go along. And that in and of itself isn't always a bad thing when we're younger. But what you find is as you progress as a professional, conflict exists everywhere. And if you're not careful to deal with it, oftentimes it can fester And usually something that's super small can become something really big if it's not dealt with. So conflict resolution is something we actually, many of us have to relearn how to deal with it. And as parents, you know, your parents, I don't know about yours and mine, but I know that as I got older, I dealt with conflict differently than when I was younger. But part of it was that I was socialized at times to just let it go, to not deal with it, to ignore it, to, you know, sticks and stones, etc. So what we have to be careful as adults when we're in a work environment or we're in an academic environment and conflict does come up, we can deal with it. And remember, conflict resolution isn't you being disagreeable just to do it. Resolution is the key. You do have a conflict, but the goal is get to an amicable resolution that you can both live with. And there are going to be times when you don't win or they won't win, but we're at a standstill to some degree that we can both live with. And that's a really important learning, a skill to learn as well. There's also a skill that we have to learn how to accept what we cannot change, right? And that comes with just accepting the stressors that come in life. I read an article a couple of weeks ago about stress management. And one of the things that that article pointed out was that you cannot get rid of stress. And I think in our head, when we think of stress management at times, we think of it in the context of getting rid of it. But I would suggest to you that instead of thinking about it getting rid of it, think of it as it is stated, stress management. You're managing the amount of stress and sometimes anxiety in your life and creating techniques. And that's why a few months ago when we did the life design plan that CCPD put on, just kind of talking about how to develop your own career in life design, is that you have to be really intentional with making some kind of intentional decisions about how we're going to deal with things, difficulties in life, and turns and toss and turns that come in everyday life. I mean, this pandemic has taught us that that's one of the things we must do in order to flourish. So I love that. I think there was one or two people that also wanted to share the areas that they have a plan, maybe a technical skill they need to learn or some soft skills. I heard a few people come out. So go ahead and unmute and start again.
Yeah, so one of the skills that, the tech skills that I think I need are some specific risk assessment tools that I use at work. Also some evaluation softwares that we don't currently have, but I would like to learn those. And also to improve with Excel, because I don't have to use Excel at work. So,
right.
And then for soft skills, I had a more difficult time figuring this one out. I feel like I need a list of soft skills to really know, but delegation is one. I think I can do better with that, and organizational skills.
Yeah.
Those are the two I came up with.
I love it. I love it. You know, one of the ways you can help yourself kind of do that process is that a few times a year, and it will be uncomfortable for those of you who've never done this, I ask the people who love me the most. And I tell them, you can be frank with me, very honest with me. You know, what are the areas that if you had to say, you would suggest that I work on, ask them. And it will change from year to year. You know, during the pandemic, there were some skills that I needed to work on because we're all in the house together for long periods of time that I didn't know I needed to work on those skills, but we had to be together for me to learn that. But a few times a year, the people that really care about me the most, I'll ask, hey, are there areas that you say I need to work on? Not technical necessarily, but maybe interactively. Are there things that you would say that I should consider looking at? Or if there's conflict, how do I deal with that? Can you talk to me about the way you think I deal with it? Because the way our self-perception is so different than the way we probably, the way others see us. And our self-presentation, which is one of these communication terms that we use, basically we all have a way that we want people to see us, right? But the reality is that doesn't always work out so good, right? That doesn't always work out the way we have intended. So we have to be thoughtful about that. So I love these, love these, love these. So let's go on to the next one. So consider top issues that have reoccurred in relationships and start there. So a lot of times, again, we think of our relationships purely as family, friends, our close inner circle. But I would caution you to really look outside of that and consider those that are interacting with you professionally. Has anyone on the call done a 360 review before? Anybody ever had to do one before? They can be painful, by the way. They can be fun as well because you can learn about things. But a 360 is essentially people who interact with you professionally, and some organizations do this often, is that everyone within your sphere, 360, if you will, does a review. And it influences your overall annual review. Now, again, imagine if everybody you knew in your work office space, not just your boss or your boss's boss, had input in kind of the lens that people see you through your review. So in some ways, it can be hard to do 360s, but in some ways, it gives you kind of an insight into who you are in everyone else's eyes. One of the things I had my career services development class this morning. I talked with them this morning about confidence. And one of the conversations we had about is that in order for you to progress through an organization professionally, is that you need to make sure that you're thought well of, not just by your boss or your boss's boss, but at people at every level of the organization. So think of it like this: within your classes, you have 30, 25, 100, depending upon the type of class in that class. If you were to do a survey of the 30 people or the 50 people, say at week 11 or 12 of the course of a 16-week course, or if you're in an 8-week course at say week 6, what would people say about you? Well, the soft skills part are probably the adjectives and verbs that people will say. He communicates well. She's a team player. She is amicable. She is task-oriented. Now, what would be amazing to most of us is the people who you thought had no real interaction with you over the 8 weeks or the 16 weeks had very definitive impressions of who you are as an individual. Well, what does that say to us about soft skills? That even when we're not having day-to-day constant interaction with individuals, but people still have a pretty broad impression of who we are as individuals. So again, our soft skills in some ways speak volumes about us. Even though our technical skills and our acumen is really important, our soft skills often make us, if you will, play well in the sandbox with others. And it's so important in our academic journey and our professional journey. So you need to put as much energy, to be honest with you, in those soft skills as you do in the hard skills. If you talk to a CEO of an organization, it's interesting to hear their perspective on their organization. But one of the things I've noticed that some of the top tier CEOs talk about is how deeply they work on those elements of people skills, being able to accommodate differences, to be able to resolve conflict. Those things are really important in the journey. And soft skills are one of those things that you need to not try to avoid, but to actively cultivate as you do your technical skills, okay? So I want to read this quote on the screen. The function of education is to teach one to think intensively and to think critically. Intelligence plus character, that is the goal of true education. That's by Dr. King. Why does that matter? Well, I'm a believer that all of you guys are at Mercer to learn something amazing, I'm sure. Or as an alum, we have some of our alum on the call as well. You came here because you had a desire to learn, right? And to grow and to be different in an intellectual way than when you got here, right? But separate from that, you have to couple those two things with your belief, not only in your intellectual ability, but with your character. And soft skills are ways that you can develop your character in addition to those technical skills. When you couple communication skills with being able to do project management on large scale, if maybe you have a PMP certification, but you can couple that with communication and team building skills, that's a powerhouse of a package together. But when you try to separate those skills, even if you're certified in project management, but you have horrible communication skills, you can see how those don't marry together, right? So it's a really important process to make sure those two things do mesh well, okay? So a few things I want you guys to take away today You know, soft skills is a development process. And I'm sure some of you along the way have heard about growth mindset. And I'm a believer that if you can develop your skills over your career, it's a way that you can develop not only professionally, but that you can even evolve as a doctor, as a business leader, as a, you know, an accountant, as a community engaged member of a greater community, a village of people who believe deeply in being a part of that great big community, right? So what I would encourage you guys to do based on kind of some of our talk today is that really look at the areas that you need to grow. You know, you have technical skills that are sharp, you know them, they're on your resume, you're proud of them. And then you have soft skills that you know you have. They're measurable. People have told you that you have them. But just like we sat there and went through developing, you know, making a list of your top 3, making a list of your top 3 of technical, your top 3 are soft, do that. Don't do that once every blue moon. Every 6 months, I do an assessment. I sit down and I really assess, okay, Allison, these are your skills. You've had them for years. They're looking great, but you still have not managed this, you know, creating boundaries possibly in the workplace, or developing some team management skills, some stress management skills. This has been on your list, Allison, for 5 years, for 7 years. How are you doing in those areas? So that's the first thing I'd say that you definitely need to do before you leave, right? Before you leave the session, really think about how you can do that. The second thing is that I encourage you to make a measurable set of goals for yourself. And what I mean by that is that if you know you're going to be finishing up, say, your PhD or your MBA or your, you know, MSBA, whatever degree, or your bachelor's of business and marketing, and you know that's coming up on the horizon, why are you waiting until right before graduation to kind of line up those skills? Instead, what I encourage you to say is, you know what, in 2 months, I'm going to set 2 low-hanging fruit. I know I can't eradicate my stress, but what I can do is I can join a yoga class and learn some deep breathing techniques to improve on my management of those moments where I'm feeling super stressed. Or I know my time management skills are not the greatest, but I know my best friend, you know, Tam, she's great at it. Why don't I ask her to be an accountability partner with me? And once a week, if she doesn't mind, every Tuesday morning, we touch base on my projects. And I know she'll hold me accountable. And I'm going to do that because even though I'm not going to love it every week, it'll be a way for me to grow and change. Okay. And then the last part is to develop a strategy. I'm a believer that strategy is the lifeblood of progress. And so you need to make sure that as you develop these measurable goals, you also develop a strategy to reach those goals. How do you do that? Create a high-hanging, pretty large scale goal that you have in your head, and then really break out those steps. The first one might be developing an accountability partner. The second one might be setting 4 to 5 smaller, more measurable goals, but you have to develop some sort of strategy in order to really get there, okay? So do that. Remember how important those are, because that's really critical to the journey. The other thing is that I want to remind you is never ask others to do for you what you are unwilling to do for yourself. Put in the work. And what do I mean by that? Well, first, this is not saying you should not ask for help. You should absolutely ask for help. I'm here to help. CCPD team's here to help. Your professors are here to help. You have peers that want to help. I'm sure your family's there to help. But what I'm saying to you is that if you're unwilling, for example, if you know you're a procrastinator, but you've done nothing to put an effort into changing that behavior, you can't expect your professor to continue to give you an extra 2 days, 3 days, 2 weeks, when you've had 20 plus years to kind of address this one issue, which is procrastination. So my point is that if you want them to be a kind of a partner with you and getting some of those soft skills in line, you also need to hold yourself accountable, okay? And that means when you know that you're a procrastinator, set some measurable goals and hold yourself accountable. And I'm a huge fan of accountability partners. And that might just be somebody else that's in the program with you or in school with you that can hold you accountable. It's one of the best things I've ever done, is have a few people in my life who help me stay on track with what I need to accomplish. So I want to pause here. We've knocked out a lot in 37 minutes. I want to see, does anybody have any questions on some things that maybe you're struggling with that maybe we can talk about as far as soft skills? And I actually going to go back. I think somebody had mentioned they wanted to see some of those soft skills. So here's some on the screen again. And here's some that I think everyone, if you can try to develop some of these skills, they're great to have: communication, teamwork, problem solving, time management, critical thinking, decision-making, organizational skills, stress management. These are all great soft skills that you can work on. But with that, let's pause for a second and see if you guys have any questions about ways to improve your personal journey in your development of soft skills. Any questions?
I have a quick question.
Sure, go ahead.
So when we're setting goals for our soft skills, how do we set them as measurable? Because, you know, sometimes they can be hard to measure.
Correct. So that is a great question. So measurable, so soft skills are sometimes subjective, very subjective. Oftentimes they are. So something like time management, you probably have a better chance of measuring that. You can set a few low-hanging things. So for example, one of the areas that I know I have to be very intentional about is actually my time management skills and my ability to prioritize, I guess, if you will, those skills, the projects I have on my plate. I tend to look at my list of projects. I have a notebook that I keep and I carry with me everywhere I go. It's right here. And when I write down my list of projects, what I find is they all start looking like they're necessary, if you will, to complete today. But what I realized that I needed to do a much better job at was using my time differently and prioritizing things in order of the need that I have on my plate. And so one of the goals I set for myself was making sure something as simple as, instead of having 20 things on a list, that every day I would, instead of doing the 20, I would create a list of 5, and then I would have a list of 15. The list of 5, I said, instead of having the 20 where I maybe only get to 2 or 3 of those today, I set that 5 list as the priority for the day, and that every day I have to complete the 5. It's no exception. I can't allow 2 of the 5 to roll over to the next day. That 5 is the priority for the day, and the 15 are going to be there. And if I get to 6 or 7 of those, get to 6 or 7 or 8, that's great, but I must complete the 5. And that to me was a major shift in how I looked at my goal setting. Instead of having the 20 thing list on my paper every day, I reprioritized. I time managed a little differently and said, okay, the 5 are measurable things that I set for that day. And so it was a shifting, if you will, of how I looked at the information. If yours is communication and you know you kind of procrastinate with conflict, one of the things is that you will have a conflict every week. It may not be an interpersonal conflict, but there's an issue or a crisis that I have to deal with every week. Well, I know for me, early on in my career, I would just knock it down, knock it down, just I'll get to it tomorrow. Then I'll push it 2 more days, 3 more days. And before you know it, that conflict had rolled over to the next week. Well, one of my rules is I don't allow 48 hours to pass without me addressing that conflict. And I do that because I realized that the stress that I was feeling, stress management, was because the conflict was hanging over my head. And so creating just low measurable, I'm not going to let it go more than 48 hours. I am going to, resolve 5 projects a day. That is something I'm going to do every day, no matter what the day looks like. At the end of the day, when you're starting to work on your soft skills, and let me know if you can't hear me, by the way, you're starting to work on your soft skills, you really have to make a decision that you're going to be honest with yourself about areas that you have to work on. At the same point, when you recognize that you have areas that you have to grow in, you have to start small. Like if you've been a procrastinator for 15 years, you're not going to solve it overnight, right? But what you can say is that instead of procrastinating, and I have these 15, 20 things I need to accomplish, I can certainly accomplish 5 of the 20 every day. And I'm going to pick 5 of the 20 that I'm confident that I can do in 20, in the 8 to 10 hours that I'm working every day. And that's a measurable that I can really create for myself. And again, for me, having an accountability partner, maybe not long-term, but maybe over a major project or 2, 3 weeks, might be a worthwhile endeavor to ensure that you can get closer to your ultimate goal, which is developing that soft skill. But what I was saying also was that one of the things that most companies look for, and it does rise to the top, every survey that I've ever seen, is communication is typically at the top, just oral, interpersonal type of communication. And not far from that is written communication. And as you can imagine, the written communication is more trained. It's more of a technical skill often because you have to learn how to write some of like technical writing. Those are trained, experienced nuances that come with learning how to do that skill. But communication often, working well, playing well in the sandbox, that's not always easy to teach somebody. You either know how to do it or you don't. And so I do think that it's important to have the technical and couple that with your soft. You need both. You don't need one or the other, because if you're a great project manager, but you're not kind and you can't work with a team and you have a lot of stress management issues, it's not going to be helpful to the organization. So you do need both, and you need to find a way to marry them both beautifully. So hopefully that was clear and answered, and you can hear me. Oh.
Yeah, we got you, Allison. Thank you so much. That was great.
Awesome. All righty. Any other questions? I'm open to any questions. Hopefully this is helpful. I hope so. And I hope that, you guys will consider making that plan for yourself, because like I said, we're all learning technical skills at the university. That's the point of being here, but you need to make sure those soft skills are developed as well. I want to put my information on the screen so you have my contact information. I know a lot of you guys are on the Atlanta campus or on the Macon campus. I'm on both often. So if you're ever on Atlanta, I'm in the business building on the top floor, room 239. But here's my email. Also, join me on LinkedIn, connect with me. I hope that you guys will join us every now and then. CCPD, we do great things with CCPD. We have a few more things this week. So please join us for the virtual event tomorrow and some other things we have going on. But just know that the goal of all of this is to help you be better, really to help you be better and to be your very best self along the way. So